Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute, a podcast that celebrates the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And for season 2, we are diving into Blazing Saddles 1, help me, somebody help me, minute at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
And joining us for the very first time, a guy very familiar with being a broadcaster, but first time with us on this Wilder Ride, we welcome Kevin Karel. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
It's fantastic to have you on. Let me go ahead and set the table for our audience. You and I actually met several years ago doing morning radio.
Yes. Sadly enough, that was like 12 years ago, which makes me feel like I'm not very young anymore. That coming out was 2007. We met and we were together on the morning show for, I guess, 4.5, 5 years, something like that. And had a great time. Obviously struck up a friendship that we've continued on. We haven't worked directly together for a number of years, but we've always stayed in touch, and it's been a great friendship. Been a lot of fun to talk movies with you over the years too.
It has been one of those great professional relationships that has turned into one of those personal friendships that is fantastic. And it's a pleasure to have you joining us here with this movie. I know it's one of those movies that you and I, many mornings, would suddenly find ourselves quoting. When you find someone who can quote Blazing Saddles, you know you found a brother from another mother.
That is absolutely true. And many times there were people in there that we wanted to treat like the horse that got the business end of Mongo's fist. That scene still makes me laugh to this day. The opening stuff with Mongo. First time I saw that, I'll never forget this. That picture, the horse dropping in the street after the punch, and the guys inside the saloon talking about Louis Pasteur, and then he's like never mind all that shit. Here comes Mongo, and the doors get broken down.
Well, this is perfect. You're already taking the lead, because one of the first things I always do with a first-time guest is, before we look at the minute that we're here to chat about, is to ask, some of your earliest recollections and thoughts about the movie. Do you remember when you first saw Blazing Saddles?
I do remember. I remember the night it was, and the person that introduced it to me, who is older than me. This movie precedes my birth, but I remember, seeing Mel Brooks movies, and then they said, this friend of mine said, well, you've never seen Blazing Saddles? I said, no, I've heard it's really good, but and they were like, well, you like Gene Wilder, and which I do. I share a big affinity for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory like you do, Alan. That was my first Gene Wilder movie. I saw it when I was a kid and have always loved it. And like you, I also believe that the recreation of that film was an abomination, but that's a different story for a different podcast, I guess.
A different season, yeah.
Yes, so anyway, I remember that night, and this friend said to kind of, I guess, warn me at the beginning. He's like, this is a different type of comedy than you're used to. Like, this movie could never, ever get made today. And I didn't know what they meant, but then, like, once we started, even that first scene on the railroad, I was like, okay, this is going to be a little bit different. And I just thought it was brilliantly written, and Gene Wilder, to me, is so funny in most of his movies. He's really funny, but something about his timing in Blazing Saddles with the different jokes. He uses he was using awkward pauses before anyone knew what that even was as a thing, and he's just brilliant in that movie. And I've liked Blazing Saddles ever since.
All right, you made the comment that when you were introduced to it, you said, "Oh my God, they couldn't do this today." Well, obviously, that means it makes that comment applies even more to the 21st century. Here we are, 2019, where people are so easily triggered by words, they sometimes won't stick around to find out what the meaning of the movie was all about.
Right, and there's of course so much deeper meaning to the movie, and they're Mel Brooks obviously is Jewish, and I thought that was really funny. That one of the best jokes in the whole movie is when he's they're like, what do we do? And he's like, well, we could just kill the firstborn son, and they're like, no, too Jewish. And
yeah, that's a great one.
And stuff like that, and it's just everybody's kind of poking fun at themselves. It reminds me a little bit of, like, that's comedy that would have been appreciated by people that like South Park, which you and I do, Alan. But it's just where no topic was off. They could talk about anything, they didn't care. And today that kind of comedy is relegated to late night on cable, and obviously South Park takes a lot of heat for some of the topics they're willing to tackle. It's just it was a very different world in terms of PC culture in 1974 than it is today.
I mean, this movie, as you said, it's an equal opportunity offender. Everybody gets hit with something at some point.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what makes it even funnier. And it also makes it fair. Like, Mel Brooks is a Jewish guy. He went, after those type of jokes and everything else. So it just, everything was up for grabs.
As far as comedies go, where does this fall as far as is it one of your favorites? Is it something you revisit continuously, or is it something you haven't seen in a while?
It's my favorite Mel Brooks movie. It is probably my second favorite Gene Wilder movie after Willy Wonka. In terms of overall comedies, oh boy, that's tough. I was of the age where you were coming up in I was in middle school in the mid 90s, so I was like the perfect age for the Ace Ventura generation when Jim Carrey was still funny.
Mm-hmm. When he was still funny.
When he was still funny, when he was in his prime, before he was whatever angry thing that is now. And so some of his elite stuff, I was the perfect age for that. Original Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, some of those movies. And then I'm also a big fan of some of the classic stuff with John Candy and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I think that's hilarious. Love Christmas Vacation. Is that more a holiday movie than a comedy, or is it both? I don't know what category you'd put it in. But to me, that's like, if I'm going to watch one movie at Christmas time, it's going to be Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And then maybe my favorite comedy of all time, if you can put it as a comedy, would be Ghostbusters. Oh,
good selections. Hey, Walt, he likes Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, which I was going to say is both a comedy and a Christmas movie, but it is also a hero movie. And
you and your heroes.
Yes. And that's as quotable a comedy, I think, as there's ever been. Like, people, if you hadn't seen that, I don't know how you would survive even in modern society with the number of quotes. Like, how many people that say or hear, "You serious, Clark?" even know that would know that that's what that's from. Things, lines like that.
And then, thanks to our Patreon special we did at the end of the year, I now know where that comes from.
Where does it come from?
It comes from National Lampoon's vacation movies.
No, I mean, like, I thought you meant like the origin of him.
Oh, no. I mean, like, I hate Christmas Vacation.
Oh, well,
but we had that as a special show. Our listeners picked that. I shouldn't say hate. That's a strong word. It wasn't one of my favorite go-to comedies. Like Ghostbusters, you and I can agree on. That's a go-to, no matter what. I could watch that anytime, at any point. If I'm flipping around, it could be 10 minutes to the end. I'm like, well, I'll watch it to the end. So, but I got a new appreciation, Walt, didn't I, for Christmas Vacation?
You did, but it was a little awkward when you had to explain that to Beverly D'Angelo on our interview with her.
Yeah, that does make for a little awkward. Hey, thanks for joining us. Why did you do that shitty movie?
Yeah, that's
No, I did not ask that question.
Well, she's amazing in that movie, and
Yes, she is.
I don't even. Is it fair to me? Ghostbusters is a comedy. It's a lot of things, but it's that, like, to me, that movie is, no matter what genre or type or era. Like, to me, Ghostbusters is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. No matter what, just the original, so good. And another of my favorite comedies, another Bill Murray, Groundhog Day, which I do try to watch every year on Groundhog Day as like a tradition of that movie's hilarious. And let's see, I like Steve Martin. That would definitely be my favorite comedy show, which you don't like nearly as much as I do, is Seinfeld. But that's, of course, not a movie. But the Mel Brooks edition of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld is very funny.
Yeah, that's a great episode, and I'm a huge Seinfeld fan, so I kind of fill that gap in our podcast of people with good comedic taste.
Yeah, Walt is here to clean up all the areas that I don't fall into.
Well, Seinfeld's the best, and Walt appreciates good stuff. I like Walt. Walt, we need to hang out.
Well, I was going to say, hey, Kevin, I'll just take over here, and you and I can have a good discussion.
Well, Alan the Jerk Store called, and they're running out of units.
Stock's running low. They asked if you could swing by.
The Jerk Store, classic episode.
Yeah, it's so good.
George Costanza's sitting there shoving shrimp down his gullet, and oh, that's great. I love Seinfeld.
Well, those are some of my favorite comedy. If I think of some others, I'll try and throw them in there. But that's probably a good overview of my favorite stuff.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into the minute here. It's a Friday, and we're going to go ahead and continue what's happening in the middle of the town square of Rockridge, as everyone's been pointing their guns, getting ready to shoot Sheriff Bart. They don't like the idea of a black sheriff. And so we start the minute right there with everybody pointing guns at him and a few more shots of people adding an additional bullet or two into their guns. And we're going to end with, "Help me, somebody help me." So what's going on here, Walt? We had Father Mowry yesterday when we left off, and this town shot the Bible.
Yeah, you're in the wrong place when the Bible gets shot by the entire town. That's not a good start.
That is an ironic episode to have had a priest.
Ironic or just well planned?
I'm going to go with the latter because I know how much you like yourself.
You know me.
I do.
You really know me.
I do.
Actually, I did ask Father Mowry to look at what minutes, and he selected. He goes, "I kind of want to do that one because of the Reverend getting the last word and then saying, 'Son, you're on your own.'"
It's a great scene overall when it starts to sink in who they're really getting.
All right, Walt, I'll go to you on this one. So when Bart realizes, all right, think fast, this is not going well, what did you think the first time, if you can remember, when he adds to it by pulling the gun on himself?
Hold it. The next man makes a move, the next gets it.
I just thought that was awesome. And looking at it now and all the times I've seen it, he is really a man on an island at this point because the entire town is against him. His only life ring was the pastor, and he's gone. So now he's just got to depend on himself and his own wiles to figure this one out.
What about you, Kevin? What do you think with the first time you saw a guy hold himself up?
I was still laughing at that point from the guy with who was the lookout, who was trying to yell, "The new sheriff is
near,"
and the bell is going off. I was still laughing from that, and then of course thought was like he pulls the sign back down and then gets on top. And it's like, well, how's this guy going to get out of this mess? And I thought it was clever and also kind of fit into that that 70s style where you could still kind of almost like Airplane in a sense, how they do it, where you were kind of like allowed to use jive in that Richard Pryor style, where like you could make fun of a certain type of accent or a way of talking for black men. And it's like he brought the streets to the Old West there for a second. And he's, trying to get himself out of that situation.
All right, Walt, there is a line taken out here. Sheriff Bart is supposed to, before he says the line about hold it, about the next man makes a move, the you-know-what gets it, he's supposed to actually, according to the script, close his eyes and then say to himself softly, it might work. Then he whips out his gun, sticks it to his neck, deepens his voice, and yells, hold it! Next man makes a move. And that's actually what we come in with. We don't actually get the it might work.
I'm glad they cut that. That is just extraneous. I don't think it really adds anything. I think it would be kind of a distraction. So I like the way they've got it. I like the way that we're kind of a person in the crowd watching this thing go down.
Well, then you're going to enjoy what else got cut. Let me go ahead and give you all the lines from the script, because right after he says the next man makes a move, gets it, then all of a sudden Bart changes his voice to his normal voice and says, he means it. He means it. He'll do it. I know him. Then Bart, you bet your ass I'll do it. Then the townspeople, hold on, men. He's not bluffing. He'll kill him as sure as shooting. Then Bart, now throw down your guns, gentle, like no tricks. Please don't shoot. Throw your guns down. He means it. He means it.
I'm glad that it turned out the way it did. They cut some stuff they really didn't need. So I think if I ever write a movie that I want Mel Brooks to produce, I'm just going to put a bunch of prairie shit in there. So he'll have plenty to cut.
Well, they do a very good job pruning. But Kevin, one of the things we like to do is look at the script and see, well, what were they supposed to shoot, or what maybe they did shoot versus what we get in the theatrical release. And we often find that some of this dialogue would have really slowed things down.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting thing that I learned from listening to last season's podcast with you guys. I had no idea, but you said that they, in the film editing, that they cut out they had over like a 3.5 hour movie for Young Frankenstein, so they cut out 50% of what they had filmed.
Nearly, yeah.
I mean, that's astounding. Do you know how much they ended up cutting out of Blazing Saddles?
You know what's funny? With all of the behind the scenes, there isn't any sense of that. And as we've gone through the script, it hasn't been nearly as bad as the Young Frankenstein script. Here's an example of where we've had maybe 5 or 6 lines that they chose either not to film or to cut. But in Young Frankenstein, there were pages of dialogue or pages of stage direction that we would just be like, well, that's not in there. That's not in there. That scene didn't get shot. Or we found stuff that was shot and was left for outtakes only, but we never got in the final release. So this script was a lot tighter going into shooting than the Young Frankenstein script.
You guys have gotten a tremendous amount of background. I'm impressed.
Are you eating something?
No. I do have a LaCroix here like a true millennial, though.
Well, what are you doing? It sounded like you were opening a tin can.
I'm holding the case of my headphones.
Okay.
Which has a sliding, yeah, I'm just going to put that down.
You put that down.
You were with me.
We have standards.
You were with me from 6 to 9 every morning. You know that I fiddle.
You do. You fiddle. Every day. Every day. Every day.
What's that guy doing? He's throwing balls against the wall.
You used to do that all the time. Literal balls, folks. He's not talking about his own.
Stress balls, squeeze balls.
That's
stress
why
balls.
foam all over the place.
All right. Well, so we do get to right away. He puts on the dialect of a, like you said, Kevin, a 1974 sort of that gangsterish, almost like street thug voice to hold himself hostage. But I also find it interesting that he chooses to be, instead of using his own voice, almost makes a parody of sort of the old plantation movies, as if he was some, house slave where he just, oh, hit me, hit me. Very, very much making fun of that style of Hollywood, almost the way the slaves would have spoken and maybe Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, they're going after the stereotypes there pretty good, and I thought he played it perfectly with both the aggressive voice and then with the, as you mentioned, the kind of the more vulnerable voice that sounds almost comical. Not almost comical, it is comical.
Well, that's good since it is a comedy.
I've been watching this expecting a drama this whole time.
I thought this was a medical film. I don't know what this is.
I feel weird laughing at this. They should be serious. I don't get it.
I thought we were doing an audio documentary. I'm in the wrong place.
Well, one of the things I like to go about is continuity. When we last left yesterday, Olson Johnson and Howard Johnson already had their guns up against both sides of Sheriff Bart's head. But then right around second 2 or 3, right after we do the insert of more people putting bullets and loading their guns, they put their guns back up to his head. Like, it didn't match the last minute.
Yeah, they must have had they must have cut and come back, and they just forgot where they were, because it's not even close. It's pointing away. Actually, he's about to shoot Howard Johnson when we first look at the scene.
It's just interesting to see just that little tiny difference when we use the little inserts. We come back and like, wait a minute, now they're all of a sudden raising their guns to where they just were.
Well, are you as impressed as I am with Cleavon Little's acting here? Because he's essentially playing 2 different parts and playing them both really well as he's walking off the stage holding a gun to his own head. And that's pretty amazing that he can do that. I probably would have fallen into the mud.
Well, yeah, to play those 2 roles certainly shows and once again, we mentioned this very early on. He comes from a stage background, and the training as a true stage actor, Shakespearean trained as well, plays very well on the camera here, being able to kind of bounce back and forth between the 2 voices and sort of the 2 roles he's playing in one.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. He's a solid actor.
Now, what gets me all of a sudden just laughing is when he puts the gun to his head and he tells him, to put the guns down. We get Olson Johnson next to him like, wait, what's going on? He turns over his shoulder. We get an insert then of Samuel Johnson, who's like, wait a minute. He looks over at Howard and says, wait, what's happening here? And then we get a shot of Mrs. Johnson, Harriet, who's like, oh, this got serious all of a sudden.
Sorry, I was just trying to get the exact line there. The one guy with the beaver pelt hat says,
this is where everybody else jumps in.
He's just crazy enough to do it. I mean, they're all an instant away from blowing his head off, and now they're all worried that he's nuts enough to do it himself.
And that's what I think is so funny. It turns on a dime, a 180 degree. You would think everybody was like, oh, okay, well, we were going to shoot him anyway, so let's go ahead and let him shoot himself too. But instead, it completely goes in a different direction. And now everybody's like, oh my God, it's a hostage situation. We have to put our guns down.
Yeah, and Harriet said, isn't anyone going to help that poor man? And the other guy with the crazy top hat says, hush, Harriet, that's a sure way to get him killed.
Isn't anybody going to help that poor man?
Hush, Harriet, that's a sure way to get him killed.
I mean, less than 60 seconds ago, that's what you wanted.
I mean, wasn't that our goal? Right.
Mrs. Dom DeLuise.
Oh, she is.
Harriet's fantastic in this movie, by the way.
Did you know that? Carol Archer there. She is actually married to Dom DeLuise at the time of this.
Yeah.
Stayed married to him until he died.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's Dom's wife in there with the little blue bonnet. Apparently she got awarded, I don't know, first place for something. I mean, I don't know what that is. That looks like.
First
I mean,
place for
I just see it as a blue ribbon on the side of her head. I don't know where you've been, but you won first prize. One of the other sight gags I absolutely love is Higgins here. Howard Johnson is not falling for it right away. He's like, you know what? I'm point blank. I'm not lowering my gun. So Cleavon Little adds this line, which is not in the script. He does not say anything about blowing his head all over this town.
Robert, I swear I'll blow this nigga's head all over this town. Oh, Lordy Lord, he's desperate. Do what he say. Do what he say.
That is an ad lib that he added. It is not in the script. But as soon as he yells, and then all of a sudden he switches over to that sort of that stereotypical plantation slave voice, and he's like, do what he said, do what he said. He's using a little hand motion. Higgins just, I crack up every time he lets the gun just kind of drop and it just hangs by the trigger guard. Like, holy crap.
Well, the different reactions of people too in the crowd when this happens. One guy just throws his gun into the mud.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same guy who pulled up the sign.
Oh, I got to watch when we get there. I do know Olson Johnson is one of the first people to drop his gun when he says, hold on, men. He's not bluffing, because he immediately drops his gun. Samuel Johnson is the one who goes, listen, man, he's just crazy enough to do it, but he puts his gun kind of on the railing. Higgins doesn't get rid of the gun until after the do what he say.
Right.
And he slowly lowers it down and puts it on the podium. And you're right. The guy that initially was responsible for popping the sign to have it go up and crossed his arms. Yeah, he just, with disgust, throws his gun to the ground like, nothing I can do to help this man. And ironically, when he's thinking, I can't help this poor man, when we get Harriet going, isn't anybody going to help this poor man?
And I just love, everybody's just kind of looking at each other like, what's going on here? You know, what do we do? Yeah, they're just completely confused. And then Olson, whatever he is, the town father or the mayor or whatever, steps forward. But these people really are morons.
Well, they are. And by the way, Kevin, I'm going to ask you this question. The first time you saw this movie, because you're a big fan of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, every time I see the guy playing Samuel Johnson, the guy with the beaver felt top hat, I swear to God, I'm like, that's Grandpa Joe.
Yeah. Yes, I
mean, it's not the same actor, but it's so similar in look. I'm like, what's Grandpa Joe doing in this Western?
Yeah, he does look like him.
We do get a sense in the if the geography of the town is right, because when he backs himself down the stairs, he cuts across the sign and continues across the street to what we now must assume is where the sheriff's office is, because our next cut is he's backing up against a door and he's still saying, help me, help me, help me. On that side of the street where he's backing up is where the sheriff's office is.
Sheriff's office in the jail where he will meet his new friend eventually.
Pretty soon.
A couple of new friends.
Well, one for sure.
My favorite friend. And he loves
our favorite.
He loves to play chess and screw.
And screw. A man after my own heart.
Who doesn't? Like to play chess, I mean.
And drink, by the way.
Yeah.
Again.
You're the Waco kid. 3
things that I could say, yes, Gene, yes. Drink, chess, and screw. Not each other, but, hey, yeah. What are your favorite things to do?
Yeah. And their dynamic really makes the movie, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and close out this minute then for Friday, because we are at the point where we're going to continue this into Monday about him backing himself, and we're going to get another sight gag of him still holding himself hostage. But before we lay the foundation for Monday, Kevin, this was your first chance to be with us, so I'll go to you first. Were there any other notes that you had, anything else you wanted to call out for this minute?
I think that the absurdity of the situation is just vintage Mel Brooks, and it's one of you already like Cleavon Little in the movie, just the actions that he, the stuff that he does in the quicksand and all that in the beginning, and then this scene. I think maybe it is that is interesting what you mentioned about the stage acting, because he's like going back and forth between 2 different characters simultaneously in that scene. He's on he walks in, he's got all that swagger, pulls the sign back down, walks up there, gets himself out of a tight spot. It's just a great scene, and you feel like there's so many moving parts in that scene and a lot of different people, and they all act it perfectly to where you believe that they are truly that stupid, that they just flipped a switch and what do we gotta, this guy's in trouble, we gotta help him. I mean, it's a great scene, and it's vintage Mel Brooks, and it's just one piece of what is a wonderful comedy.
You know, Walt, building on that last comment, does this help set the stage that the townsfolk may not be necessarily as bad as, let's say, Hedley Lamarr and company, because they didn't appreciate a black sheriff, but the minute he puts himself in trouble, or they perceive him as being in trouble, it actually melts their anger.
I think it's kind of step one in the process of them coming around on him. And I think you're right. I think that one of the things that Mel uses here is to kind of show how dumb racism and racists are.
Right.
But also he starts to make the townspeople a little bit more endearing to the audience. And if they had continued this hardcore corporate racism against him, I think it would have been really difficult for us to come around on the townspeople. But he does a masterful job here of throwing that switch.
All right. Well, anything else in your notes then?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered it pretty well.
I've got just one last thing, and it makes me see that they may have shot some of this stuff out of order, or they weren't paying a lot of attention to costume continuity. Through this whole minute, Olson Johnson, the guy with the Texas-style hat standing next to Harriet, he's got a pristine blue suit. If you fast forward to about 56 seconds into this, as Sheriff Bart is backing himself up to the door of the jail or of the sheriff's office, we get a quick cut back to the four guys standing, or the four actors standing on the dais there. You've got Samuel Johnson, Howard Johnson, Olson Johnson, and Harriet Johnson. Olson Johnson suddenly has all of this confetti crap all over his jacket.
I assume that's from when the Bible got shot up.
Yep, but it wasn't there the rest of this whole minute. It only shows up at the end here from this angle.
There were a couple of flakes right at about 32, 33. No, I'm sorry, at about 36, 37 as Cleavon Little goes by him, but nothing compared to what it is at the end of the minute.
No, it's definitely a lot of extraneous garbage on his suit. Yeah, you're right. There's a couple of flecks when he goes by him, but then when we get that little tiny insert shot just as this minute is coming to an end, there's crap all over his
like
suit.
half the Bible on him.
Yeah, I thought it went to Omaha.
And if he was standing to get it just right there, wouldn't he have been shot?
Well, yeah, I don't know how all the stuff landed on him. Nobody else has a damn thing on them.
And it's all right in that one little spot.
Right. So just something to point out. You don't notice these things until you slow a movie down 1 minute at a time. And, people are probably saying I don't give a damn. But you know what? I pointed it out.
Right. Thanks, morons.
Thank you.
Just a movie.
It's just a movie. All right. Well, before we let our guest go, he is going to return Monday. This is the weekend, so if you're one of those binge listeners, maybe you're just now going to listen to all 5 episodes and then wait for Monday. Kevin Karel, you are a broadcaster yourself. I know you, and I was introducing you to Walt earlier before we even went live. You're the voice of the Rome Braves, part of the Major League franchise, the Atlanta Braves, but it's the minor league team. Tell us a little bit about what you do and where people can learn more about you.
Yeah, I work for, the parent company is Rome Radio Partners. It's a radio group, obviously, in Rome, as Peyton Manning talked about during the Super Bowl, Rome, Georgia. And it is one of the 6 radio stations in that cluster is called the Jock. It's the sports station. I'm basically in charge of that station, the keeping all the programs running. It's an ESPN radio affiliate, and I do different things to, keep the commercials going, the program, and all of that. But my favorite part of my job is doing actual play-by-play broadcasts, and I do contracted with the Jock. We have the Rome Braves, a single A affiliate for Atlanta, and they're a full season minor league team, which means they play 140 games a year. And, I go on the road with the team, do all the road games. Could be just, a few hours away in Augusta, Georgia. It could be in New Jersey or Maryland, West Virginia. Travel all around and do that, and it's a lot of fun. During the winter, I do Berry College men's and women's basketball, and help out with the football broadcasts. In the fall, I've also worked with Shorter University in Rome as well. And the first thing I did out of college was, Alan, you and I talked about that morning show, and then you and I, Matt Santini, and some of our other friends were all involved with Cartersville athletics, and that was Cartersville High long before the Trevor Lawrence days, but it was a lot of fun back then, and just always have enjoyed radio and broadcasting. And I think we had just started to get streaming when I came to BHF. And Alan, I remember you telling me how you had been talking to our engineer, lovable Ed Razumna, and Ed was kind of resistant about putting the link, giving us an internet stream. And you said, no, the internet, it's like, I'm telling you, the internet is the future of radio. And that was 12, 13 years ago. And you were absolutely right, my friend. How many of our morning shows and different broadcasts at that time were on the internet? And now you've got, most people listen to, I think the majority of the people that listen to our baseball games for Rome Braves or our basketball games at Berry College, wherever we're at, people are listening on the internet and listening on their smartphones, and maybe they'll be listening to this podcast on their smartphone, those type of things. So I think it's been fun to watch radio grow with technology in the 21st century, and you taught me a lot about that side of it, and I believed you then. I certainly believe you now, and I think that all of the strides that radio has made hopefully will continue.
Excellent. If somebody's listening and they want to follow you, they want to say, "Hey, where's Kevin going?" Are you active on social media? Do you have a way for people to follow you?
No, I hate people. I don't like talking to them. I don't like seeing them or having to stare at their stupid faces. I'm a big fan of humans. You know that. The Twitter. What is my Twitter handle? It's on here. It's I'm on.
You're so used to giving it out, right?
Yeah, I don't do a ton of social media, but I think Twitter, as you another thing that you talked to me about back in the day, the importance of Twitter as it was becoming something very important for business in radio, and I eventually did listen and got a Twitter account, and now it's vital for my work that I do. But it's my Twitter handle is @Kevin Karel, and my last name is spelled unusually. Its first name is Kevin, last name Karel, and then 21, because everyone has to have some stupid reference to high school somewhere, and that's mine. So anyway, that's my Twitter handle. So
excellent, folks. Follow him. If you're a fan of Major League Baseball, you know what? Maybe check out some of those minor league games he's calling. We are, at the time of this recording, we are still just a few weeks away from pitchers and catchers, but by the time it airs, we're already going to be knee deep into for opening season, and he's a great play-by-play caller, and you, thanks to the internet, you can hear him wherever they're broadcasting.
Hey, Walt just followed me. I just followed you back, Walt.
Awesome.
That's real-time Twitter.
That's
right
how
there.
it works.
That is real-time Twitter. Walt, you look really familiar in this Twitter bio photograph. I think I've seen you before. Do you do that?
Well, he references the Hillbilly Dictionary. Just put in Bubba Redneck, and he's the poster child.
Alan, Walt and I are trying to have a conversation here.
Sorry.
You just keep interrupting.
Sorry. Zipping it up.
All right, we'll have to get to that next episode. But Walt, it is good to have you on the tweets, my friend.
Yeah, you too. I'm sure you will figure out how you know me at some point.
Maybe not at the museum. Maybe have you done that?
I have not done that. I've done some other stuff around Cartersville, and I've been to the Rome Braves game once or twice.
That's what it is.
Well, I remember
I
remember every face of the thousands of people that have come in.
I knew you would.
Well, you would, because you would go, oh my God, it's Bubba Redneck. I saw your picture in the book.
You're the dude from Hillbilly Dictionary.
Well, next time you come to a Rome Braves game, you should definitely come find me. The press box is hard to miss.
I'll tweet you and let you know I'm coming.
Yes, my forehead is also hard to miss, so you'll see that in the press box. So just find me.
Yeah, that's why I've discovered the magic of baseball hats.
Yes.
Folks, the thing about Kevin that I need to tell you about, he's about 6'8", and I'm about 5'2". So whenever we get together, I'm the hobbit, and he's one of the normal people.
I thought you were going to say the thing about Kevin is that you need to know is that he's an asshole. And I was convinced that's what you were going to say. But
no, I wouldn't do that. I want people to find that out for themselves.
It's way more fun if they do.
It's more fun for me when I see the joy of discovery on their faces.
It's more fun for me that way too.
Yeah. All right, Walt, where can people learn a little bit more about maybe following us on social media, specifically our podcast?
Probably the best place to go is if you're an Apple iPhone or whatever user, go to iTunes and find us on there, The Wilder Ride. Be sure and subscribe so that you can catch all of our latest episodes and antics. And any other podcatcher now, you're going to find us on Stitcher. You're going to find us on all those other wonderful podcatching places. And if you don't mind, if you like what you're hearing, please give us a rating. We would appreciate a 5-star and a comment. The comments really help people find us when they're looking for Gene or one of the other actors or one of the movies that we've taken a look at. So that would be hugely helpful. And Alan, I was also going to mention we have some patrons who have helped us out. You and I have been guests on a couple of shows as well. And one of the other podcasts that you and I guested on was the Rocky Minute. So if anybody wants to find us out there, we did 5 minutes of that movie. And I just did a minute of Seinfeld.
Ooh.
So got to be on one of the Cheever Letters episodes. So if you want to check that out too, that's great.
Walt, we have got to meet.
Yeah, we do.
That's one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's common courtesy. You come in the house, you wipe your
You guys are going to
wheels.
just talk?
I loved him. He was the greatest manager.
Yes. And he's the most wonderful man I've ever known.
I knew it. I knew it all along.
We've
folks,
really got to be going.
Folks, watch online. I'll be looking for a new host and looking for a new podcast. Apparently, I have lost my job here. It's been nice knowing you. It was a good run. It lasted a season and a third, so I appreciate that. It's longer than a lot of people gave me. So.
Well, and Kevin and I will be starting the new podcast, Rednecks Talk Seinfeld, coming to a podcatcher near you.
If they haven't already, my fantasy baseball team name is Art Vandelay, so you know who I am.
Oh. We are like brothers.
I hope.
Oh my God.
Alan's getting so jealous right now.
I am. I'm losing my friend.
You're moving in. You're moving in
losing
on
them both.
moving in on his bro
All right.
time.
Well, guess what, folks? We get to keep this up on Monday, so enjoy your binge listening over the weekend. Enjoy whatever other podcasts you get caught up on. But come on back here Monday for minute number 31, because in minute number 31, we're going to kick off with continuing, hit me, then shut up, and then eventually ending with expressing our feelings about the new sheriff. So come on back here on Monday for this, The Wilder Ride. Guys, you're Seinfeld. Seinfeld is so cool. I like Seinfeld and Cheever Letters.
It is.
Of course it is.
Well, Alan just doesn't like anything that's about nothing.
No, I like things that are funny. Seinfeld is funny. Seinfeld is funny, but in small doses.
Oh, I could binge watch from start to finish right now.
I know you could.
Well, I've got bad friends.
I guess it's like, damn, he's bought 5 or 6 versions of that movie.
Well,
I
Walt,
ended up buying the full Mel Brooks. Well, it doesn't turn out to be the full Mel Brooks, but it's a Mel Brooks collection, and I think it's got 8 of his movies. So now I have a Young Frankenstein that I will not lend out.
Good.
Smart on your part.
But, Walt is the kind of person that, he's not really all that picky and choosy when it comes to friends. He needs all he can get.
This is true.
The first time I saw Blazing Saddles, I laughed so hard at Mongo, it was unhealthy.
It was unhealthy.